All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fifth and final session of the Policy Matters series. It's been such a journey, and it's not over just yet. Today, we're very, very excited to welcome our partners from Rising Youth and TakingITGlobal to join us from Passion to Action session on grant writing through the Rising Youth program. Right before we get started, I'd love to start off with a land acknowledgement, as we try to do at the beginning of every one of our sessions. I want to acknowledge that OCIC, who's been organizing this through the support of many of our partners, sits on the unceded territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, known along settler lines as Toronto, Ontario. I want us to acknowledge that, of course, all of us are joining from different places and different territories that are unceded from across Turtle Island, but I also want us to reflect on land acknowledgements, not just as a way to name the Indigenous communities on whose land we live, work, and play, but rather to use this as a reflection to acknowledge and contextualize where we're joining from, and then understand how that underlines and frames our solidarity with Indigenous people. So I invite everyone to take a couple of seconds or a minute or so to just reflect on not just whose land you live on, but actually how the knowledge that you exist on unceded Indigenous territory frames your engagement in this space, specifically in the way that you will be able to take skills back from today's session, or set intentions to take skills back from today's session to serve as a better ally in your communities. So I invite you to take a couple moments. Feel free to write in the chat as well where you're joining from, which Indigenous territories you're joining from, and what you hope to take away from today's session that will allow you to stand in solidarity with these folks. And I see some messages already dropping into the chat. So thank you, folks, for holding this space with me. And I hope that you will continue to drop more comments or reflections in the chat as we go along, and continue to engage with this, to think through how we can move land acknowledgements beyond words to actual action. With that, it is my absolute pleasure to briskly hand off today's session to Mark Bass, who's joining us from TakingITGlobal and the Rising Youth program, who will be supporting all of you in understanding what Rising Youth is, what opportunities are available, and how you can get involved. I know many of you have joined us with throughout multiple sessions that we've run, and have had the opportunity to get nitty-gritty with some of the work that we've been doing, including policy advocacy or youth delegations, or even last week's hackathon. But some of you might still be wondering how you can take this passion and this momentum and take action in your own community. And so with that, Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you to ask the final question of how do we take action?
Gosh, thank you so much for having us today. It's a real pleasure. It's always such a pleasure to talk to people who are engaged in their community, who care about making change, and to come out or to come virtually to this on a Saturday afternoon really speaks to your passion. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to be here today. Just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and my colleague Christina. Christina, why don't you jump in and introduce yourself as well, because you're joining me as well.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it's nice to see you guys here today. I know some of you personally, actually, I can see Salamat on the call. It's nice to see you again. Some of you may already know I'm the Partnerships and Outreach Lead at Rising Youth, and I did lead a session last year with OCIC, and I'm excited to be here as well to kind of support in the breakout rooms for this. Yeah, it's nice to see you all here on a Saturday afternoon. Pass it back to you, Mark.
Thanks so much. And as said before, my name is Mark Bask. I'm a participant support coordinator. What does that mean? Well, it means that I help youth at every stage of the process. So sometimes youth have just heard about our grants. Maybe they don't have an idea, but they want to get involved. They can schedule a call with me and we can talk about it. We can try to figure out what's your passion and how do we change that into a project idea. Maybe you have a project idea and you know what the grants are, but you're just like a little bit nervous about actually doing that grant writing. I can also help you with that. I can sit down with you. We can talk together and fill out the application. And I also provide ongoing support. So basically, Christina deals with partnerships and I deal with youth. So Christina sets it up and I knock it down, basically is how it works here. I just wanted to take a very brief second to just talk about my own Rising Youth project, because that's how I got involved with Rising Youth. I was initially a grantee and then an alumni, and then I got a contract, and eventually I was hired full-time. So this is also just to say that with Rising Youth, there are alumni opportunities afterwards, after you complete a project, and you never know where that's going to lead. But for my Rising Youth project, it was called Desert Hearts Film Society. And basically I just rented a space and got the rights to a bunch of movies, and was basically showing movies by underrepresented directors. Every second movie was directed by a woman or a non-binary person. We privilege, people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ2IS directors and stories and stuff. And it was just as simple as that. Like, it was just a community film society. It was free to enter. Anyone could come. We spent half the money on movies and half the money on popcorn. And we just bought a popcorn machine and everyone could come and get free popcorn. And basically, the reason I started it is because I realized that, when you were living in a small city, you didn't get a chance to see lots of movies by different diverse voices. Like, you were basically just forced to see like Marvel movies or nothing. So it was a way to bring people together, to create community, but also, just to like, create some dialogue over stories that maybe are not shared quite as often. So this is just to say, I just wanted to watch movies with people, and like I turned that into a grant. So I'm certain some of you have way more like great ideas to how to support your community, and they're all possible. So whatever your passion is, there is a way to turn that into a grant. This is all to say. So you've heard a couple names. You've heard Taking It Global. You've heard Rising Youth. Basically, Taking It Global is the company that we work for. The mission of Taking It Global is to enable young people to understand and act on the world's greatest challenges. So basically, what we do is we give people an opportunity to deal with, global problems on a small scale. So it's like we all make little changes in our community, and sometimes the change can seem, not that big. Maybe we only affect 10 to 20 people, but that really adds up. The more people in the community who are doing things like that, it really makes a difference. And our vision is that youth everywhere are actively engaged and connected in shaping a more inclusive, peaceful, and sustainable world. I think that sort of speaks for itself. So Taking Global is where we work for, and Taking Global has the Rising Youth Grant, which we're here to talk to you about today. So basically, the Rising Youth Grant is funded on trust, and it's a trust that you as youth living in communities know best about how to make change in your communities. So we're not here as gatekeepers to be like, oh, I don't think this sounds like a really great idea. Like, we're not going to give you the money. Basically, these are non-competitive grants. So we just keep, like, if you apply for a grant and it reaches all of our criteria and eligibility, we just keep giving out the money until there's no money left. Hopefully that will be in December of this year. We're hoping to have money. Last year was the first year that we actually ran out of money a little bit of early, just because there were so many great projects that came in, about COVID-19 and dealing with the pandemic. But yeah, so these
one thing, Mark. So can I jump in for a second?
Of course.
Yeah, just so you know, because we do get a lot of grants and applications in Ontario. We may have a cutoff on October 31st. So if you really want to access these grants, I would encourage you to apply before October 31st, because we do want to make sure that we also reach, we also ensure that the grants reach other provinces and especially in the north as well. So I would encourage, if you're youth from Ontario, you apply before October 31st. Because after that, we may have to reduce the amount of money that we're giving out. So,
yeah, thank you so much, Christina. That's actually a really great point. being in Ontario, because we are located here, has the majority of grants are from Ontario. So yeah, it is a good idea to, if you are planning on applying for this, to get your grant in before, you said October 31st, right, Christina?
Yeah, that's right. October 31st. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. So these grants, basically, they are open to young people aged 15 to 30 to imagine ideas that can support their local community. And then we actually want to take these ideas and help put them into action by furnishing grants of $250, $750, and $1,500. What we also do, we don't just give you the money and go, okay, have fun, hope it goes well. We also will be able to provide ongoing project support to make sure that these projects are thriving and successful. So we have a team of rising youth staff who are willing to help you. That's actually, like I said before, as a participant support coordinator, that's one of my jobs. We also have different grantee support coordinators, but there's always someone there for you. There's always someone in your corner, so you don't ever have to feel like you're alone. There's always someone you can reach out to, whether if you need some advice, you need some help with your budget, things are changing, you just need help with outreach, you have questions, you've never done this before. We're always there to help. So you do have a support system, along with obviously the fantastic people that you know already in your community. And yeah, another thing that we do is we try to amplify these stories of youth across the country. So, you're able to tag anything in social media with Rising Youth. On Instagram, it's Rising Youth TIG, and we'll be able to share your stories. If you email us, let us know there's upcoming events, we can share them with sort of our network. So do you have an idea to support your community? Well, that's a great start. So here are the 3 steps to success, as I call them. So basically, number 1, you identify an issue. So there's something in your community, like maybe you realize that there are people who are, experiencing food insecurity because of COVID-19. There were a lot of people were, out of work during that time. And you realize that some people in your community are, experiencing food insecurity. So that's an issue. Maybe it's the winter and you realize that lots of people in your community don't have winter jackets, and you want to help people get winter jackets. Maybe, in your community, there's no composting program and you're like, well, I really want to start a composting program. So an issue in your community is just something that you think that, a way that you could help. Maybe it's because you've seen another community that has something that yours does not, and maybe it's just because you've identified something. So you identify that issue, you figure out what it is, and then you propose a solution. So that's what a Rising Youth Grant is. You say, hey, I've realized this, I'd like to help with. Here's how I'm going to do it, and then number 3 is you go for it. We get you that grant to make these projects a reality. Oh my gosh, I just went up instead of down, excuse me. So some ways to think about it, what is my mandate? What's my issue? What's my idea? And from there, you can think about, how am I going to do it? What are my operations? And then maybe that can think about the resources that you need. Or maybe, you start with resources. You're like, hey, what are my resources? What community, who am I connected to? What do I have at my disposal? And maybe that can help inform things. So maybe you have a mandate and you have resources and you're like, okay, so because I work here, I do this, I have this knowledge, this is what I'm going to do. So it can really it can inform things in different ways, how you're doing it, how you can make it happen, and what's your issue. There are different ways you can actually start to ideate these projects. So like I said before, we have 3 levels of grants available. So we have the $250 grant. Here it's listed as simple ideas like events and gatherings. Now, personally, myself, anytime I see anyone applying for a $250 grant, I'm like, why don't you apply for a bigger grant? That sounds like a great idea. If you do have an event and gathering, maybe you're putting together a tournament or something like that. I will always say hey, don't you want to spend $200 on pizza and feed everyone at this event? So I usually try to get people into the bigger grants because, $1,500 might seem like a lot of money, but when you're actually putting these projects together, you'll be surprised how fast expenses actually add up. So you don't feel like you need to change the world with our $1,500 grant. And also don't feel like you need to justify, oh, is this worth $1,500? Is this worth $750? If it's something that you believe in, and if it's something that you've identified in your community and you believe you can change it, that's good enough for us. And we'll talk about eligibility and everything later and how to actually, make sure that your grants are eligible. But like, we believe in you. We're not going to question like, hey, why are you doing a $1,500 grant? If you have a budget, everything adds up, and you have an idea, like that's good enough for us. But just to give you an idea, these grants are broken up. So 750 bigger ideas like community gardens or delivering care packages. Like I said, you can do a community garden for $1,500 if you really want to. Same with delivering care packages. So it's like there's nothing prescribed like, oh, this is a 250 or this is a 750. Like if it makes sense to you and you can tell us why, then you're going to be eligible. And then again, $1,500 projects that involve a larger group of people helping drive community impact. These projects need a budget and a community mentor. Usually we ask for budgets for everything, but for $1,500 grants, yeah, we usually do like to have like a nice outline of how you're spending this money. By the way, I didn't mention this before. If you have questions at any point, or if I'm just like going too fast and you're like, whoa, slow down, daddy, feel free to drop a line in the comments or in the chat. I do not mind answering questions at any time.
I do want to actually just quickly interject, Mark. Anika
Yes.
from OCIC here. I noticed that the $1,500 grant says that you need a community mentor. If any of you listening are interested in applying but don't have a community mentor, I've dropped my email in the chat, and feel free to reach out to OCIC. We're always happy to support however we can. If we can serve as your community mentor, we're more than happy to do that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so you already have community mentors at your disposal. Basically, a community mentor, just to explain it, is just someone who's just like in your community who can help you out. So like I said, we're always available, but we're also not there. We're not in your community. So sometimes it's nice to have someone who's near you, who maybe can help lend a hand, but a lot of times it's just an advisory position. So it could be a teacher, it could be a family friend, it could be a coach, it could be a boss, someone you worked with before. So basically community reference, community mentor, just someone in your community who, you can lean on a little bit as well. We just want to make sure that you have that support system basically when you're doing these grants, so you don't feel alone. So you've heard a little bit about this. What are the 4 stages for impact? Well, design the project, apply, launch, and share. So design your project. For an example, for like ideation, it's like, what's one thing you wish you could change about your community? What's one thing that you wish your community had but didn't? And when you start ideating about these things, a lot of times we come up with really big ideas. When it comes to these grants, we will try to like bring it down to scalable ideas. After all, these are micro grants. These are community service micro grants. So $1,500, like I said, it's not a ton of money, but you can make a difference in your community. And yeah, no difference is too small. If you're helping people, that's good enough. We also have like a wide range of project ideas that are available on our website, which I'll lead you through some of them in a little bit. So we have a custom referral link here for the Ontario Council of International Cooperation, which is www.ocic.risingyouth.ca. And basically brings you to the exact same Rising Youth homepage. Just lets us know that you came through the Ontario Council for International Cooperation. So then that way we know you're at this meeting. We can provide you support. We can connect you to Annika if that needs to happen. But yeah, this is where you can apply, and I'll take you a little bit through the application process a little later. And then here's the fun part: launch your project. So make positive change happen in your community. It's time to turn these plans into action. And while you're doing these projects, we ask, if possible, to take lots of photos and videos to document the amazing work that you're doing. That way, you can share them on your social media. You can tag us. We can share it on ours. We can help signal boost your project. But also, you can help inspire another generation of youth who maybe don't know exactly what they want to do, but they see your project and they're like, wow, that's amazing. So these things have ripple effects throughout the community. One person does a project, another person hears about it. I love the idea of people who have never heard of Rising Youth doing a project, becoming alumni, and then maybe you're helping somebody on their project next year. Maybe you serve as a community reference. So you can see how these ripple effects can really pile up here. And like I said, you need some support along the way. We're here to make sure help make sure your project is successful. like I said before, sharing the impact. We want to help you tell your story. So you can use Rising Youth on all your social media posts to help boost your impact. I should probably put the Rising Youth TIG, but I'll do that later. But yeah, we also, if you check out,
Do it. Don't worry, I'll do it.
thank you so much. If you check out Rising Youth TIG on Instagram, you can see tons of project ideas. Like every day we're posting different projects that are happening all over Turtle Island. So there's lots of great project ideas available there. There's some on our website. We have different virtual project ideas. And yeah, I'll take you through some of these as well. Something new that we actually launched very, very recently is the TRC Calls to Action Toolkit. This is also right on the front page of Rising Youth. So basically what this is a toolkit that deals with responses to the Reconciliation Commission's 94 recommendations. So it's a component of the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement. Its mandate is to inform all Canadians about what happened in the Indian residential schools. Obviously, this is something that's really has a lot of visibility this year. So we want to provide something so that youth could actually just like deal with these recommendations on a very practical level in their communities. So basically in this toolkit, which once again is on the Rising Youth website, there's different project ideas, and we have the idea, we have the write-up, and we have budget templates. So you could literally take this write-up, take this budget, and just like apply for a grant with these write-ups, and like because we created them, like they will be approved. So there might be something that you're passionate about, but maybe you're just like, hey, I really want to help my community. I really want to, support Indigenous people on Turtle Island, and you're just like, you're not 100% sure what to do, but you want to be engaged. This could be perfect for you. You could actually just like I said, apply for these, and you don't have to keep the budgets. You don't have to keep the write-ups. You can change things. These are templates. You can use them just as they are, but you can also change them. So for example, a couple project ideas: sharing the calls of the TRC booklets to classmates. So you can actually like print off these different booklets and distribute them to people in your community. You can hold an Indigenous rights event where you can invite speakers, give them honoraria, do advertising, give orange t-shirts to the organizers. You can hold a culture camp for Indigenous youth. So a day-long culture camp, or maybe a weekend-long culture camp. Bring in elders and knowledge keepers to teach about traditional knowledge systems. So I think there's about 9 different examples in this toolkit of projects, like I said, that are ready to go. So something to keep in mind, especially this year, if you want to help make an impact in your community, this is something that would be very meaningful. So we have fantastic members of our team who help put this together. So we're really excited. Please.
Can I add something, Mark, as well? Yeah.
Of course.
And just ensure, like, if you want to make a difference with the Indigenous communities, that you also do ensure that you also reach out to a community member in advance before you even start your project, because it's good for you to know how you'll be able to engage with communities where they're at as well, right? Because communities are vary across the country, even though they're Indigenous. And so I would advise you to ensure that you also do your research ahead of time before you start, and also connect with the community members before you even initiate your project as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. And like, this booklet, obviously it's open to everyone. It's meant to be read by non-Indigenous folk as well as Indigenous folk. There's certain project examples here that like, it will say like this, like right here on the culture camp, this should be led by Indigenous youth for Indigenous youth. But there's other things that you as a non-Indigenous youth can also engage in to help support your community. But like Christina said, it's always good to get a read on the community, connect with people, and see what's going on. Again, feel free to ask any questions if I'm going too fast, or if something is unclear, feel free. So,
quick question in the chat, and apologies if you've already addressed this, but someone asked whether the number of grants, the $1,500 grants, or the large grants, if the number of grants run out quicker than the other grant options. And if there's a limit of grant sizes for the provinces or territories.
Great question. So no, the grants do not run out any quicker. I mean, it's all just one pool of money. So we're giving it out. If you apply for a $250 grant or a $1,500 grant, we don't look at it and go like, oh, this project's not as important. Like maybe you should apply for a smaller one. Like we take all grants as they come. yeah, the money does not run out for one grant. Towards the end of the year, it might be different if we're coming into December and there's only a small amount of money left. It could be different, but at the moment, no. It's not easier to get like a $250 grant than it is a $1,500 grant. They're all just as easy to get. If you meet our eligibility and you have a budget, you will be accepted.
Yeah, and just to add to that, yeah, this is what Mark is saying. Like, as long as you apply before October 31st, you should be able to access a $1,500 grant. This is part of your project instead of what you're doing. But after November 1st, we might reduce how much money we're giving out, just because, as I mentioned, you know, the Ontario funds has been going quicker because we do have allocation specific for the different provinces and territories. But then the Ontario one is going quicker because Ontario just apply much quicker than other youth. And so what that means is that we might start reducing that after November 1st. So that's why I'm encouraging you to apply early if you can.
So yeah, after November 1st, things might change. At the moment, it's just like these grants are all as easy to get as any other ones. And like I said, we don't judge like whether or not this should be a $1,500 project. We just look like, do you have an idea? Are you doing something about it? Do you meet our eligibility? Yes, then in that case, we'll make you apply, or we'll approve the grant. Basically, I work on the grants administration team as well, and I liken it to like an open book test. Like, we're going to ask you questions to like make sure you're eligible, but we're also going to give you the answers. So we want all these grants to go through. Like, the more grants that we can approve, like it's the better for us. So like I said, non-competitive grants as well. Does that answer the question? I hope so. And if not, just ask another question. We're open. So I have been mentioning eligibility a little bit. I like to save this. I like to get people pumped up before I start talking about like the nitty gritty, but we'll get into a little bit of the nitty gritty here because it's important to know. And like I said, this is stuff that we will work with you. So if you apply for something and it doesn't quite meet our eligibility, either me or someone like me will reach out to you and be like, hey, this doesn't meet our eligibility. Let's work on it. Like, do you want to have a call? Can we talk about this? We'll give you suggestions. We'll try to get you across the finish line because we want to get you across the finish line. So for eligibility, I will run through these as quickly as possible because it's just like a long list. Like I said, be led.
Another question. Sorry, another question came in, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
I just read it out.
Yeah.
If you're looking to fund a virtual event, are the participants restricted to those in Canada only? Yeah.
That's a great question, actually.
The majority of the participants have to be in Canada, and the project has to serve mainly Canadian communities. You could have an international focus, but it can't be the main focus. And I know that question has come up because, you know, OCSC obviously works with, you know, communities globally. But what I would say is like at least 80% of your impact has to be within Canada. Yeah.
So it's like you could have an impact outside Canada, but yeah, we really do ask you to try to focus on people inside of Canada. These grants were given to us by the government of Canada, so these are like the mandates that come down from on high. But the focus of it is supposed to impact people in Canada. If you have a couple participants, like if you put on like a virtual event, you know, whatever it is, whether it's like a panel discussion or something like that, you know, there can be people who like attend from outside of Canada, but yeah, we try to keep the impact as much as possible in Canada. Does that make sense? Please let us know if we ever answer a question and it becomes more confusing than before.
They both felt that we answered the questions well, so just so you know that.
Great to hear. So yeah, like as we were saying, be led and created by youth age 15 to 30 who is a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or has been granted refugee status in Canada. This is one of those things, like I said, it's the mandates that come down that we're inflexible on this. That's one thing that does have to be led by Canadian, or like we said there. Be self-initiated and not done on behalf of or for an organization other than a volunteer-led youth organization. So basically what this means is, it doesn't mean that you can't like partner with an organization. Doesn't mean like, hey, I work with this rec center. Does that mean I can't like help them? No, you absolutely can. We just want these ideas to come from you. We just don't want organizations to take advantage of youth and be like, hey, you're going to apply for this grant so you can do this and help us. Like, we just want the ideas to come from you. If you care about this organization, you want to help out, you want to do something with this organization, you absolutely can do that. Be new and distinct, i.e. not be the continuation of an existing program, offered by an organization or service in the community. So as much as possible, we try to keep these as like new ideas. You're starting up something new that didn't exist before. However, if there's things that used to exist, like you used to have a yearly festival that happened every winter, but it stopped happening a couple of years ago because of whatever, COVID, because funds run out. You can restart things. Like, it's just like, we don't want you to just continue something that already exists and would exist without this grant. The idea is that these grants will activate new projects and give people an opportunity to like, yeah, be involved in community service projects. Have a service related volunteerism aspect or activity to relevant equipment purchases. So just to give you an example, like, if your project, if what you wanted to do is like, hey, I want to, buy a computer for a senior's home so the seniors can have more access to computers. There's no volunteerism aspect to that. It's just like, hey, I'm buying this and I'm giving this to somebody. So that would not be an eligible project. However, recently we did approve a project that was about a group of youth who basically ordered all these computer parts and they built a computer from scratch. So through this, they all like got life skills, like on how to like, build a computer, how to like learning about all that computer technology. And then once they were done with that and they had that computer, they donated it to a senior's home. So just to give you an idea that like, even if you have an idea that's not quite right, there are ways that we can add volunteerism and create like an eligible project. For example, be an initiative that will positively impact the community and be done during volunteered time. So many of you might actually, work for organizations that you want to do projects with. All that we ask is that when you're running projects, you're not on your work hours when you're running these projects. So it's like you're using your volunteer time. Like I said, these are volunteer community service projects. So we just don't want people doing it who are, being paid to do it at that time. So we ask you to do things on your volunteer time, even if you do, work at some of these community places. Recruit and involve project team members to help you in implementing the project. Usually we ask that you have at least one other person that's helping you out with the project. Obviously, like the more the merrier. If there was 15 of you here right now and every single one of you wanted to apply for a grant, you could all do that. And then you could also all help out on each other's projects. So there's no limit to the amount of like projects that you can help on, but you're only allowed to apply for one grant yourself as one person. We're not allowing second grant applications right now from these communities. So yeah, like I said, you can apply for one grant, but you can be on as many projects. And let's say you applied for a grant, you did it, you want to apply for another one, you're like, oh, I'm really passionate about that. You can still be involved in that project, but like maybe you could find someone like a friend of yours who wouldn't mind like applying under their name. So they would get the money, they would be responsible for filling out the final report, but you can be as involved with it as possible. Started and finished within 90 days and have a primary focus on impact in Canada. So basically we have sort of a 3-month runway for our projects to complete them. Now, this doesn't mean that your project can't live on. Like maybe you've started a group, maybe you've started like a soccer club and that soccer club's going to continue on forever. Like that's totally cool. We just ask that you spend all the funds from the project within the first 3 months of getting it, and that you would then fill out a final report after that, just letting us know what you did. So some people, they start something and it keeps going on, and that's totally cool. But 3 months just to spend the funds, basically. And like I said, be accompanied by the submission of a final report up to 30 days after project completion. So you have 3 months to complete your project, and then you have another month to actually file your report. So let's say you start on July 1st, your project. So your project would have to be wrapped up by October 1st. So you've spent all your money by October 1st. And then by November 1st, you will have submitted the final report, which is basically just a form that you fill out that lets us know hey, how did it go? What did you do? How many people were impacted? Do you have any photos? And you also will attach your receipts, which is the most important part of the report, just to make sure we get the receipts, because the money that we send you is actually non-taxable. So we send you $1,500. It's non-taxable as long as there's that report and we get the receipts back. Otherwise, if the CRA looks at it, it just looks like you've gotten $1,500 worth of income basically. So that's why the receipts are really important. So if you do a project and you have receipts, it's a great idea to take pictures of those receipts and keep them. That way you know where they are for the final report. And yeah, just be executed safely according to public health guidelines. So if you're doing like indoor projects, like we might just be like, hey, are you planning on following social distancing in your communities? Obviously, like things are opening up more and more across Turtle Island. So that'll be less of a problem as it goes on. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. So what are some things that are ineligible? So the project can't solely be a fundraiser or to generate profit for another organization. So a project can't be like, hey, we're collecting money and we're going to give it to an organization. So we ask the projects don't be like that. You also like can't like charge admission to any of these. Like if you're doing an event, you can't charge admission. Everything has to be free and open to the public. However, if you do an event and then at the end of that event, you put like a donation jar out and you're like, hey, you should donate to this organization. Like that's between you and God. It has nothing to do with us, but just we ask that you don't charge admission, and then that a thing cannot be solely a fundraiser. Basically, like I said, you can't charge an entrance fee or ticket. These are supposed to be open to your community. There's just supposed to be community service grants that help impact your community. You're able to pay for honoraria for people, which basically means like you're paying people to come in and you're paying them less than they would get usually if they were doing their job. So like maybe you want to get a poster designed for your event, and usually it would cost you like $500 to get a poster, but someone and they're going to do it for you for like $250. Like that would be like an honoraria basically. So you can't pay to family members or people on your core team of volunteers. So basically if you're volunteering on the project, you can't get paid for it, but you can bring in other people. So let's say you're the person and you think you want to like teach something and you think you should get paid for it. You want to get somebody else to actually apply for the project and then hire you on the project itself. And we also ask that you don't spend more than half the grants on honorarium, on prizes, gift cards, or for professional service payments. So if you like $1,500, you don't spend more than $750 on any one line item, basically. And then also no more than $450 can be given to one individual as like honoraria. We do have flexibility on this. I'm so sorry. This is all just like numbers and stuff. All this stuff is on our website. And like I said, we are here to help you. We're not here to confuse you about this stuff. So anything that you don't know about, we will work with you to make sure that it falls into these guidelines. Yeah, and also we typically ask that you don't like apply for a grant to cover funds that like from purchases you made before. So it's basically like we approve you and then you spend the money. You don't spend the money first, then apply for a grant and then pay yourself back. Yeah, that's another piece of eligibility. And so what's a successful project? Like I said before, an successful project is something that identifies an issue, proposes a solution, and implements it within your community. And then after your project's done, you need to donate all equipment bought for use to either a charity, a nonprofit, or a school. So it's like, this wouldn't count if you're just doing like art supplies and stuff and you have like an art jam and stuff and you all use markers and construction paper. But let's say you purchase something substantial for a project, whether it is like a computer, instruments, any tools. We just ask that you donate that to a charity, nonprofit, or school. Now, there are ways to do this where, let's say you've purchased all this equipment for like a soccer tournament and you want there to continue to be like a soccer league throughout sort of the year. You can always find like a community organization to sort of like partner with and go like, hey, we'd like to donate this to you, but we'd still like to be able to use it, for these things. Is that cool with you if we donate it to you, but also we can still use it? And a lot of community organizations are like, yeah, totally. Especially if they agree with what you're doing and they want it to keep going along. So yeah, let's say one of your things was just to create like a hangout space in the middle of town. You want to buy like a hammock, a cool place for people to hang out and stuff. If you want that to stay all year round, like you could just like donate that hammock to an organization and be like, hey, do you mind if we donate this to you and like keep it here? And if they're like, yeah, totally, you can do that. So there are ways to like keep things going longer. But basically, this is just to stop you from just like buying stuff and then keeping it, basically. Like, oh, cool, I bought all this like musical equipment for this project, and now I'm going to go home with my new guitar and my new amp and stuff. We want all this stuff to live in the community and be open to community members. Does that make sense? If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask it in the chat. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to show you some ideas of like projects that have actually already happened. So I'm going to share my screen again. Give me one moment. So yeah, I just put together some projects that have happened in the last couple of years, just so you can get an idea of like what some people are doing like all around the country. So there was a roller derby in Whitehorse. So the project consisted of starting a junior roller derby league with low barriers to entry for young women aged 10 to 18 in Whitehorse. So in this case, like the budget was spent on skates, wrist guards, knees, and elbow pads. So, you know, people who like couldn't afford to like join a roller derby could do that. There was a women's bike race also in Whitehorse. This was just a woman who was like, hey, like I miss, especially during the pandemic, I miss just like biking with other women in our community. So she started a bike race, and she also hired like a photographer for $300 to like take sweet pictures like this one. Part of the money was spent on participant swag bags so people could leave with something, and also foods and snacks and drinks for the event itself. Swimming lessons in Iqaluit. This was just literally organized by a student who just wanted to take their entire school to a pool just to swim for like an afternoon, grades 9 to 12. So there was the pool rental, but then they also had they went back to the school and had breakfast afterwards. So these just like small project ideas, like they don't seem like much, but like they improve people's quality of life. And maybe, you know, the youth didn't have access to, a lot of the youth didn't have access to the pool, and this was a way to do it. A basketball tournament that was started in Richmond, Ontario. So Lakeside Hoops, summer basketball tournament where youth were able to stay active while participating in friendly competition. So maybe in your community, you're just like, hey, there's not a lot for youth to do. And they just like get up to no good, basically. So like, what can we do to like give them the fun stuff to do in the summer? Start a basketball tournament. Snowshoe workshop. So teaching traditional cultural teachings, like how to make snowshoes. So you can hire someone to like come and host that class, and you can also pay for the tools and the wood to be able to like create that stuff, and then everything you create in the workshop, the youth can actually like leave with that, basically.
So, you know, Mark, people are loving these examples. So just want to
people are loving them. I don't know how
you're the photos, they love the examples.
Oh, okay, that's great. I'm so glad to see it. Sports and arts care packages during the pandemic. This team created 15 sports packages and 15 arts packages, including recreational equipment and art supplies for families that didn't have access to the stuff to keep young kids busy during the pandemic. So like for young kids growing up, like going out playing is so important. And like, as you know, the pandemic was just such a hard time for youth who are just like in that very like, I don't know what to say, but like that stage where they really need to like go out and keep busy and just like keep their minds going. So in this case, they put together packages and they just gave them out to families who might not have had, you know, access to sports and arts equipment. So they partnered with a community partner who helped them figure out who these families could be, and then they distributed these care packages. Youth educational camping. So it was like a 3-part camping series that was a hands-on learning experience for youth to expand their camping knowledge and skills, and also develop sustainable environmental practices. So there was $600 that went towards a trip leader who actually took them, $250 for a photographer and videographer to like document the event, $250 for food, $150 for postering, advertising, $150 for materials, $100 for first aid supplies. So just to give you an idea, this is what we're looking for with a budget. It's just a breakdown. It's a breakdown that adds up to the amount of money that you're applying for. So you don't necessarily have to like go into the food being like, oh, we're gonna have 10 pizzas from this place. Now, if you do go over like half your budget, like over 750 for any one thing, we might then ask like, okay, like what are you spending this on? Do you have a receipt? But if something like this is a perfect budget. These are all perfect budgets. It's just like a small explanation of how you're spending the money. We trust you. And also the budgets are they're templates, right? So things will change along the way. It's almost guaranteed. So you might have this budget and you realize, oh, I actually got the food donated free. Can I spend more money on like advertising? The answer is yes. Budgets can change and there's no problem. We just ask that you like let your grantee support coordinator know of any budget changes. That way we can put it in your file. So then when the receipts come in, we're just like, yeah, this is all hunky dory. We understand exactly what's going on here. Winter fun run, ball hockey program. So these are some more recreational examples. I also have some that are community care and mental wellness project examples. So ice fishing in the Nunavut. So this was like an on the land trip for 20 students to be taken across the bay to a location called Bay of Two Rivers. Maybe lots of these youth have never been able to ice fish before, and this is like their first opportunity. So like the budget went towards renting snowmobiles, gas for the snowmobile, an honorarium for the guide who took them, and then some money for the lures and hooks to actually be able to fish, and money for food. So yeah, these are all like real projects that have really happened. Mask and sanitizer kits, delivering DIY hand sanitizer kits and masks to those in need. So this project was just about delivering PPE to frontline workers during the pandemic. They were just like, hey, I want people to be safe. It's like, we're going to make it happen. Again, child activity care packages, Yukon College Wellness Week. So it was just a week of activities and low stress social interactions to help increase mental wellness and increase mental health literacy through destigmatizing conversations around mental health. So this was just like, yeah, at a college in Yukon, they were just like, they had hot chocolate in the hall. They had a film screening with a mental health professional on site. They had a journaling workshop. They had a drop the bass, substance-free social and dance. If you want to do like a sober dance for people who like don't usually get to like go out and party with like no alcohol around, like that's a good project idea. Mental health week bowling night. So a high school rented out a bowling alley for students. They just rented a bowling alley for $500 and then they bought a bunch of pizza with the rest of the money. And like that was an activity. Bush camp. Project organized a bush camp to support youth with learning on the land, healthy lifestyle choices, and connecting with traditional knowledge. Again, passing on that traditional knowledge. Like some youth want to do like snowshoe workshops, beading workshops, and just get in touch with stuff that they don't know how to do. Maybe you want to hold a cooking class for youth because you're like, hey, I don't feel like there's definitely some youth who just like don't know how to make some like basic meals. Maybe there's a large immigrant community or newcomer community in your community, and you want to help them by doing like a healthy eating workshop or like a yoga classes. These are all project ideas that have actually happened. Newcomers nutrition and fitness classes. A magazine was created in Northwest Territories which focused on climate change. Queer prom and movie night. Like I said, like maybe, you know, you're queer in your community and it's just like there's not a lot of queer positive events. You can hold a queer positive event, bring people together, have a queer prom, have a movie night. Even if there's only like 15 people who show up, it still like makes a huge difference in the lives of those 15 people. So these are really good project ideas. Even if they feel like they have a small impact, it really matters to the people that it helps. Videography workshop. So this workshop just hired someone to like lay out the basics of filmmaking, give people a chance to like work with cameras. So they rented equipment, they had catering, they had $450 for an honoraria for guest presenters to come in and like teach people how to like make movies and use a camera. Live stream concert series that happened during COVID. And yeah, some food sovereignty and community care project examples. So an urban public garden. So lots of people do public gardens. Where like lots of people come together and they all work together and then they share the harvest, basically. There was one that was absolutely incredible in Vancouver where it wasn't only like one community garden, it was a series of community gardens all around the city. So basically these really enterprising youth found people with yards that could have gardens and were like, hey, can we use your yards to create a garden? And in repayment, you're going to basically this like food from all these different gardens. So they just created a network of gardens. They all worked together and everybody shared all of the harvest, basically, of all the vegetables. Small spaces indoor garden workshops. So this was a workshop to help people, again, during COVID, to be able to like have a little garden, but inside their houses. So like, hey, you can't go out and maybe you live in an apartment plants in a very small space. So this literally was like, it was a workshop, but also provided soil, seeds, and gardening supplies to people so they could go home and like actually grow their own stuff. Seed exchange and workshop, COVID food boxes for people, you know, experiencing food insecurity because of COVID-19. There was a drive-through outdoor market where it was just like, it offered free food and vegetables to people, again, experiencing food insecurity, and they could just drive up with their car and like pick up what they wanted, or they could literally just like walk through and get stuff. Community raised garden composting program that was started at a high school, traditional food skills webinar, food harvesting and preservation. This one school, they learned how to like fish and then also just like preserve food for a long time. So they bought like a commercial grade vacuum sealer and like vacuum bags, and they just like vacuum sealed a bunch of food. Healthy eating on a budget workshops. You want to just teach people how to eat a little bit healthier on a small budget. There's just so many. There's so many really, really cool project ideas. So I hope that that helped just spark some ideas in your mind. You don't have to do anything like that, but like these are all ideas that have already happened. So it's like you could do something like this. If you see a project and you're like, hey, I want to do like exactly that, like you absolutely can. Yeah, so that's basically our presentation. I was hoping that what we could actually do after this is just jump into a couple small groups, and we could like maybe just like talk about some project ideas that we have, see if we can get some things going. So we might actually split us up into 2 smaller groups here. But I also wanted to sorry, Christina, I meant to put your information here on the right, but I accidentally just put my information twice.
It's all right. It's all good.
So let me just go ahead and change that really quickly.
No problem. Do you have a Jamboard, or do you want me to create one really quickly for the breakout rooms?
Actually, that would be great if you could create a Jamboard.
Okay, sounds good.
So these are our communication. It's basically really easy to remember. It's just our names at TakingITGlobal.org. You can feel free to reach out to me at any point if you're like, okay, like I'm ready, like let's do this. I'm accepting meetings like anytime. So just send me like an email, and like we can book a meeting. Like I said, if you just have an inkling of an idea and you want to see to develop it into a project, we can help that. If you already have that idea and you just want to like need some help like putting it into an application because you want that application to go through, it's like I'm here to help you. So it's like the quicker we can get it through. And yeah, that's basically the presentation. So Annika, are we able to split into smaller groups?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sitting here like putting this breakout room together and going, I should apply for one.
You absolutely should. Like 100%. Like you have such a flexible, like I applied for this grant when I was 30 years old and they considered me a youth. I don't even understand that.
As long as you're not 31.
As long as you're not 31. And if you are 31, maybe you have a best friend who's 30 or 29 or 18 or 15 and they want to apply for the grant. Like I said,
together. Yeah, that's right.
You work together. Like there's no like limit of how many projects you can work on, just how many projects you can actually apply for, like under your own name. So we'll split into groups, and then me and Christina will go to the groups, and we can just talk. Like you don't have to have big ideas. We can just discuss about things that you're passionate about, basically.
I'm gonna share the Jamboard in a sec. Before you pressing breakout rooms, I'm just gonna share the Jamboard right now, the link.
I know how things. We're recording again. I know how things went in group 1. We had a lot, or room 1. We had a lot of great ideas. How did it go on your side, Christina?
It went well. Yeah, there's some really cool ideas that came from the conversation. I think maybe like some people dropped out as well. I'm not sure, but we didn't have the full 5 youth in the room, so it's might have dropped out. But it was still a good conversation. Like some of the ideas that came up, for instance, were like doing like self-defense classes for young women in the community, particularly Muslim women, as we've seen a lot of an increase in like those attacks happening in different communities. And that could be like something that's done outdoors. Like another idea that came up was like having a concert with local singers and songwriters to kind of like strengthen community bonds in a local community.
That's fantastic. I know there was one that happened during COVID where it was like a virtual concert series that happened with lots of like lots of local artists. So they paid the artists like a certain amount to perform, and then it was like on Zoom for everyone. Yeah, super cool idea. Now that COVID is like wrapping up, you can actually start to do things like maybe in person again. So that's super cool.
Or even do it like outside in social distance and still, still make it happen. So
absolutely.
And one more that was actually really cool was also like the local scavenger hunt, kind of highlighting like different histories in Canada that are not like that we don't really learn in school, like like Indigenous.
Wow,
like,
beautiful.
We have different community make a scavenger hunt and going from community to like finding out where the different spots are that kind of like highlight different histories and then giving them a prize at the end. So that was Anika's idea actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. It's learning and fun.
How was your room? How was your room? You have a lot of ideas I see on the Jamboard.
Yeah, I see. I wanted to just share all these ideas with people in room one. So self-defense classes for Muslim women in the community, like we were talking before about like, yeah, having newcomers being able to offer, cooking classes or like yoga classes and stuff like that. You can do self-defense classes, like whatever you think that like people would really need. And I see here lack of culturally sensitive resources to address mental health for youth. So this is more of an issue, and it's like there are different ways.
The solution is this the solution right here? I just
and that's the solution. Awesome. We've heard virtual event session.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, so you can have a 3-part virtual event with 2 facilitators and one with just youth. You can talk about mental health, destigmatize things, provide resources. You could even send people home with resources. You could be like, hey, we're printing all this mental health stuff, or we're going to send it to you. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Actually, last year I did a project like similar to that where we had like 4 of us, like because we're no longer newcomers, of course, we've been here for a long time, but we're doing like a culturally sensitive like 2 sessions that we had where we had like youth in the community who identified as newcomers or who identified as refugees coming in and kind of talking about like different challenges they had with mental health and how to access culturally sensitive resources in their community. And we had like different links as well for that. So yeah, it went really well actually. That was like last year in July.
That's awesome. Yeah, so in room 1, yeah, we came up with a lot of different ideas. So one of the first ones that was put forward was like having virtual events to discuss policy issues. So these policies could be from a lot of different perspectives. You could talk about human rights. You could talk about climate change. You could talk about the importance of accessibility and how to integrate accessibility into events in life. I couldn't think of the word, so I put unavailability, but COVID vaccines, the fact that it's like not available to certain countries and like the horrible stuff that they're facing because we have greedy pharmaceutical corporations who refuse to like release patents and stuff like that. So like talking about those important issues. As far as virtual events, there's so many different things you can do. You can pay speakers honoraria to come and like, host panel discussions and stuff like this, events like this where it's just like brainstorming. So yeah, that's fantastic. We talked about different learning opportunities, different workshops to teach important skills. So we talked about finance courses for youth. We talked about how lots of youth just don't have like basic financial literacy. And I'm an adult and I don't have basic financial literacy and stuff. I feel like there's lots of people who don't know things about like interest, credit cards, like what does that actually mean? What are taxes, So like a youth training series about like just basic finances. I feel like almost everybody could benefit for something like that. Also technology skills, like having coding skills, also like advertising, marketing skills, like maybe how to use Canva to like advertise an event, how to make, because all this technology is like at our fingertips. Like we're able to do everything, but not everyone has those like either coding skills, computer literacy skills, or whatever. So having like a workshop, again, you can bring in somebody, pay them to host it. If you are somebody who has these tech skills, you can host it and spend money on just like feeding people and like giving them stuff to take away. We talked about an event, different events to address like anti-Asian hate, for example. It could be a virtual or in-person event. You could have people coming in sharing their experiences of dealing with anti-Asian hate. You can have professors or policymakers, people coming in and like and talking about those things, and just talking about ways that we can educate people and like get rid of like stupid preconceptions and stuff, and just like make the world more inclusive. We talked about projects that had to do with women's hygienic products. So maybe it's like women who are experiencing homelessness in your community, and like bringing care packages to them with like pads and tampons and like and sanitary napkins and things like that. We also talked about a project that did happen. I can't remember where it was, if it was in Nova Scotia, but a woman at her high school thought that that the women should be able to have free hygienic products. So not only did she purchase a bunch of hygienic products, she also worked with the shop class at her high school, and they built a cabinet that would live in these, or different cabinets that would live in these different women's bathrooms at the school, and then she would stock them with hygienic products. So it was like there was an organizational aspect. There was like working with the
cool, actually.
Working with the shop class to like create something and then stocking it. So in the first 3 months, she could just buy all those products, and then she could have them like all year round. So that's a project that could go on all year long, for example.
Wow, that could be something that would be really cool actually to implement in all schools, actually.
That could be in every school. Like everyone in every community can apply for that grant. Like it's such a great idea. But yeah, also just like, care packages, like food care packages to people experiencing food insecurity. We talked, obviously we talked about in the presentation, maybe there are youth in your community who just don't have access to like arts or like sports and stuff, care packages for them. We also talked about like connecting youth from remote Indigenous communities with both non-Indigenous and Indigenous youth from urban areas. So we talked about how there's this like kind of huge disconnect. And like a lot of times people don't really know like things that are happening in like remote Indigenous communities, especially remote Indigenous communities in the North. Like what issues are important to you? What problems are you facing in your communities? Like, how can we amplify your voices? Like, what do we do? Can we bring policy recommendations? Can we advocate on your behalf? Can we spread awareness? Like, what is it that you need? So stuff like that, bridging gaps between communities that usually don't have that contact is fantastic. So these are all just ideas that like came out in like 15 minutes. And I know that like, as soon as we log off, you might have another great idea. Like every single one, you might have another great idea. So all these are possible. Like every single one of these that we've talked about is a possible grant. And like, I'm willing to sit down with each and every one of you to like figure out what you're passionate about. Or if you already know that, how can we turn this into a project? So,
and just to add to that as well, and I know some people who come into the OCSC space are also very passionate about international work, right? And addressing a lot of issues that are happening globally. And maybe it has to do with like, for instance, like the issue of vaccines, like, people who are probably like very vulnerable in different communities around the world may not even have vaccines. Like, obviously most of us are able to get double vax, but not everyone is able to has that privilege right around the world. And so, if you want to raise certain issues and you want to like educate the Canadian community, this is something that you could potentially do with these grants. Like if you, for example, want to talk about, some of the things that are going on in Myanmar, for instance, or, somewhere in a different place that you think that you want to raise an issue that's going to kind of raise awareness on it, that's also something that you could potentially do. But of course, you still have to engage Canadian communities in that conversation, but it could still be international. So just wanted to add that as well, because I know some of you are very passionate about that work.
Yeah, we asked that it's just not fully international, like, because, again, just government mandates, like, to me, it's like fantastic. Our company's called Taking It Global. We want to take it global. We want these global problems to be solved everywhere. But yeah, we asked that like at least it has like a focus in Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was like absolutely fantastic. Like I loved like such a keen, like not a huge group, but like the best group. Like one of the best groups that I've worked with as far as just like being engaged, like, having ideas. Like I've enjoyed this so much. I put my Calendly link in the chat. Basically, this is a link where you can literally just book a meeting with me without having to like go back and forth on emails. Like, how's your Wednesday? How's your Thursday? How's your next week? How's your August? You can literally just go in there, book a 15, 30 or 45-minute meeting with me. You can write like what you want to talk about, and then we can either have a phone call or a video chat. So feel free to use that. But I just want to open it up, like while we still have another couple minutes. Are there any questions from the group about anything we've talked about? And if there aren't, that means we've done our job. Just kidding. There's always questions.
You did a
There's
great
no
job,
question
Mark.
that's too small. Oh, you too,
You
Christina.
did an amazing job for running your first entire workshop by yourself.
First workshop. Yeah, it was fun. Y'all made it super, super easy. By again being engaged, having great ideas, and just like seeing some smiling faces too always really helps you think that you're not just delivering a speech into the void. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. Maybe I'll just turn it back to Annika, just like really quickly, just to wrap it up. Thanks for the shirt comment.
Absolutely. Yeah, everyone loves your shirt and your presentation. You know? So with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to Mark and Christina for making the time and for sharing all your insights. I think what I shared with Christina in the small group was just the like inspiration that these don't have to be typical projects. I think what I think of course, coming as a staff member in the NGO world is when you think of projects, you think of, okay, a webinar or a training session or something that you know you can get data or things to report against, but like how creative this can be and how this can really fund maybe some of your summer activities. So if you're planning on having a great summer and have specific ideas, but you just don't have the bankroll to take action on it, this is a great opportunity. So thank you again, Mark and Christina, for sharing your insights and your expertise and for making yourself available. They've dropped they've shared their information. They've dropped some contact info in the chat, and I've also shared my email. So if at any time you have any more questions or comments or reflections, please don't feel shy to reach out. But with that, I want to kind of move us into wrapping up a very bittersweet closing to what has been such an incredible, reflective, amazing who made the time and made the effort to be here on a Saturday, but also through all of our different sessions over the past several weeks. We really thank all of you as well as all of our partners for being here and for facilitating such an incredible series of trainings, and we hope that you will be able to take all of this theory and take action in your own communities. So with that, I share once again a huge note of appreciation and wish you all a great rest of your day. Thanks, folks.
Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Take care.